Yeah, you know what? This is actually fun for me. This is
Ah,
what I choose to do first. Like, no matter how many other things I have going on, this is what I choose to do first. It can take over my whole day, and I'm still like, ooh, what else can I do for triggered? I really enjoy this, and I
because
enjoy y'all. Thank y'all.
yeah, I enjoy it too. I must really, really enjoy it because I have had a day and I was like, I don't feel like doing none of this right now. But the moment I sat down and I saw your beautiful face, I was like, okay, I can do this.
Oh,
I
thank
was like,
you.
all right. Like, but you want to know something? I think that the lesson is in this idea that you're gonna love every moment of chasing your dream and trying to do something. There's like this facade that's been perpetuated that, oh, like if you don't love it every moment, if you're not so passionate, then it's not for you. And I feel like it sets us up for failure because it neglects the push. Like there are days, a lot of days where even if you love something, you have to push a little. You have to
Yeah,
crawl and scratch and climb
yeah,
your way through it. So I always get that reminder for the days where it's like I don't feel like it. It's like, okay, I don't feel like it, but I'm doing it anyways. And that is
yeah.
like, a little pat on my back to just be like, okay, but you pushed through that day. And I'm always happy I did, but let's not negate or go around the push that is necessary to accomplish your goals. It's not going to always feel good.
It really, really is not. And that's actually some of the piece that we're talking about today, when things don't feel good and how you need to operate, even if and when it does not feel good. And we
Yeah.
are going to hop right on in because y'all already know, here for a good time, not a long time. You're going to hear us say that all the time because I think for me, it's important that we understand that we need to redeem the time. Like, time is literally moving so quickly that
Mhm.
if we're not being intentional with our time, we lose so much. So, hopping right on in. So, today's quote, Danny, do you want to say it or do you want me to go ahead and drop it on the peoples?
You can go ahead and drop it. You can drop the quote of the day. This is a good
All
one.
right, we're going to drop the quote of the day. So, the quote of the day is: shame hates it when we reach out and tell our story. It hates having words wrapped around it. It
Mm,
cannot survive being shared. Shame loves secrecy. And that one is by Brené Brown. Whew.
mm. That's so real, right? Doesn't that like it's just like when you were reading that, I like felt it in my stomach, like, oh, that's so true. Like when you feel in your gut, like,
Yes.
oh, that's so true. Yeah. It says shame is, and if you're familiar with Brene Brown's work, that's like what she does. She studies shame. She
Mhm.
quantifies it, she qualifies it, she does all the things. She's literally a shame scientist. And
Yeah.
I just love her work, and I'm so moved by the conversations that she has around shame because it's something that we all experience. There isn't a
Yes.
human on earth that does not experience shame.
Mhm.
So it's one of those things. I think if we use it and use that kind of like familiarity to connect, it can be such a beautiful thing. And she usually talks about using shame to facilitate vulnerability. And it's just, that's a great quote. I love it.
Yeah. What I like most about it is and it's also too, especially if you are coming from a background where there has been some pain and some hurt, and the adults in your life are doing things that would not, did not, and could never position you to be happy, whole adults without the immense and intense services of therapists, coaches,
All
and
the
all of
things.
that. Like, if let's say listen, if they didn't protect you, if there was abuse of any kind, there is a lot of internalized shame around that, feeling like you did something to deserve it, or you weren't good enough, or you just couldn't get right. And then that internalized shame can sometimes then turn into self-harming behaviors and self-sabotage. You get to where you feel as though you are worthless, so then now your value then now decreases because of these very real, experiences and circumstances that happen to you that may or may not have been your fault, but you've internalized them as they are. So you feel deep shame around what that is, what that means for you, what you did as a result of it. And so what I started to do very, very young, and by young, I mean like 2021, I started telling my truth, no matter who it hurt, no matter who was uncomfortable with it. I started telling my truth of what my experience was. And I had gotten into trouble and I had done some things that I was embarrassed about. Like when I turned 18, like I got arrested for stealing. Mind you, I sat on the board in my hometown. And so when I got arrested and the cops brought me in, they were like, "Oh, are you coming for a tour, Alicia?" Because I had done some tours of the jail because I had sat on the board in the county. And the cop was like, "No, we're arresting her." And they looked at me like, "Oh my God." Telling that story, it used to bring me such deep shame. And so I finally was like, you know what? No, nobody will ever be able to use anything I've ever done against me without my permission to do so. So I started telling this story. My boyfriend at the time taught me how to steal. I grew up impoverished. I was tired of wearing clothes that didn't fit or clothes that had holes in them or not having enough panties. And so he taught me how to steal them so I would never go without. Is it right? No, it wasn't right. Was it what I did at the time because it was what I felt I had to do? Yeah. There's no need to steal at this stage because there are things that I can do. I can use my mind to make money. Like there are things I can ask a friend. Like we can figure it out. But at that time, I really did feel as though I had no alternative. I didn't understand. And then allowing myself to work through the shame of it all, of what will people think if they find out? If they think that I'm still the same person that I was at 18 and I am now at 37, okay, sure.
One of the things that I feel like happens when it comes to shame is because it is usually so deep down in our soul, it can lead us to getting triggered really easily because you are so ashamed. That fear of being exposed can get you on edge where every little thing is triggering you because you just think that everybody's out to get you and everybody's out to reveal and take the mask off to who you really are. So one of the things we wanted to provide today for the Dating Well AF tip was a way to kind of manage your triggers a bit. So get a pen and paper. And we want you to write down 10 of your triggers. Okay, write down 10 of your triggers. They could be anything from you get triggered when someone's snacking when they're eating, okay, to you get triggered when somebody makes a comment about your body. You get triggered when you see puppies on what's that little thing with the song "In the Arms of an Angel," like that.
No, you didn't.
That might be triggering to people. I'm lying. That's triggering. Okay. If you don't like to see animals in distress, okay, I'll say it like that. If that's triggering, write that down. So I'm only giving those examples because I just want you to know, like, it's whatever level of triggers, right? And then on a scale of 1, which is a mild reaction, which is how you react to said trigger, or 10, you blowing shit up, right? You're going to rate each one on a scale from 1 to 10. So 1 is, oh man, I like that. It just feels like a little needle poked you or something. And then 10 is you just want to blow something up because you're so triggered. So being able to identify exactly what your triggers are will make them more manageable because you have to name the thing before you can do anything about it, right? Yeah. So we want, for dating, one of the things that people run into a lot is they go out there dating, they don't know what their triggers are, someone triggers them, and then they react in an unexpected way to both them and the person. You can sometimes scare people off like that. You can sometimes put yourself in precarious situations like that. So it's good to just kind of go into your dating experience, kind of knowing what you're about and knowing what can set you off so that you can navigate it and that you can compose yourself and you can show up as the best version of yourself with those triggers, clank, clank.
Absolutely. Because here's the thing. The reason you want to get clear on where particular triggers are on the scale is because once you get over a 6, and this is where this is where it get real good. Once you get over a 6, you are now getting into territory where, can kind of get you arrested. It can cause maybe loss of life.
Yeah.
It may sound like I'm joking, but I'm not. Like, you really do have to understand, how do you respond to those triggers? So any of those triggers that are a 6 and above, next to them, I really want you to identify and write out, what is my response to these triggers?
Yeah.
What do I do? What is happening when I'm at a 6 and I'm so triggered that I'm thinking about going to slash some tires? Now, no, I don't slash tires no more. Again, I was young. Y'all don't judge me.
My slash tires, sure.
Don't judge me. And it's past the statute of limitations, so I can talk about it freely.
But it's true. It's good to know what your reactions are. Like, I know that, like, I'm handsy. Like, I get to a certain point and all I want to do is put my hands on you. Okay. And I have learned that is not the way to handle conflict. Okay. So I know that when I get to about a 7, 8, like, I want to physically harm you in some way, preferably with my hands or an object, because I'm Jamaican and I'm small. So I would, I'll pick something up or something. So it is very important. Thank you for adding that piece, like, to say what the reaction is so that you can be like, okay, I know if he says this is what might happen. So then I can, rein it in and get it under control quickly. But if you're just going in and you have no idea, it does put you at risk to be triggered. And then you didn't really expect it. And then you're flying off the handle and blowing shit up. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Because the last piece to that is, once you've identified what you do, once you're at a 6 and above and you are clear on, hey, this is what happens, I want you to create, what's the alternative? And I need you to create it when you're calm, so that you can work to remember it when you're heated, because you get to make a choice. And one choice can literally completely change the rest of your life. I need us to get to the understanding of how critical that is, because your choices really do dictate the life and the lifestyle that you live. And if we are going to get better at this whole adulting thing, because dear God, it is so much harder than I thought it would ever be. I just knew I was excited to be 18. If we're going to get better at this, and if we're going to create lives that we're not so traumatized in, we're going to have to do things a little differently. So to sum it up in a bow, number 1, take 10 of your triggers. Take 10 of your triggers, write them down. You can write it on a piece of paper, a notepad, or whatever you want it to be. Take 10, write them down. Next to each one, rate them from 1 to 10. For all those that are 6 and up, I want you to write what your response is to said trigger. And the last piece is I want you to create a different response. Only to the ones that are 6 and up. Create an alternative response that will, A, get you out of the situation, and B, help you make a better choice.
Okay.
Y'all got it? I hope so. Now, we told y'all we like to talk a little tea, okay? Just a little tea. However, what we do when we talk our pop culture tea, it is always from the lens of, okay, now, yes, we've identified the action. Now, how do we heal, or what is the trauma that has been displayed in that? So our pop culture piece this week is unfortunately about a young woman who she did not realize what her actions were for her triggers too, which is why this is such an important topic for this particular week. There was a woman in Atlanta who apparently she did a job, allegedly, with a young male partner, and he apparently did not pay her for said alleged job. And in retaliation, she decided to put his Navy Federal debit card on the interwebs. Actually, it was on X, formerly Twitter. She put his information on there, his card number, his address, so that when they use the card, it'll go through, because they got that good zip code. Apparently, maybe his date of birth. All the identifying information that you need to be able to pay a bill, buy some Christmas gifts, pay a mortgage. And people took that information and actually started paying bills and spending money and doing all the things. And now my good sis, and no, I don't know her, but now our good sis is being investigated by the Federal Bureau of Investigations and the Atlanta Police Department. Now, y'all, at some point, not only will we have to take accountability for our actions, but at some point, we are going to have to not be so triggered by our romantic partners that we're not putting ourselves in positions where we got to go to jail. Jail?
I wonder why she didn't just take the debit card information and pay herself.
I think
it was bigger than that. She wanted to like really like get him. How do we know that this young man didn't deserve it? Like maybe she was getting him for all the women before her and all the women after her. Like sometimes I feel like I don't want to wait on the Lord or the universe to get revenge. Like I don't want to wait on karma. Karma sometimes just be taking her sweet time. Sometimes the karma don't be coming this lifetime. Sometimes you want to see the karma, you want to feel the karma, you want to smell the karma for yourself. And I don't know. I just don't think we have the whole story. I feel like we need more details. We need more people. Because is she wrong? We don't know what he did to deserve that.
Ma'am.
I'm just saying.
This ain't about him. Whether or not he is wrong. See, this is how women get arrested and go to jail and end up on Snapped. Whether or not he is wrong is immaterial. Do you or don't you want to wear orange every day? Do you or don't you want to wear orange every day and be surrounded by women who are menstruating because all y'all cycles have synced up? Do you or don't you?
I mean, obviously there are consequences to the action. You know, I'm just kidding. Like, that's not okay. All right. Disclaimer. You should not do that to anybody, no matter what they did to you. That's not okay. But I'm just saying, I think that the deeper conversation should be around what happens between us as men and women or as lovers, whether it's same-sex lovers or whatever. But there's so much that happens chemically that you can't even think straight sometimes when you are in a romantic space with someone. All the chemicals, what do you say? The chemicals be chemicaling. And you're chemicaling. Right. And you're just not in your right mind. You're disconnected from your body when you're angry. So it's like, yes, what she did was wrong. But I also think that there's something to be said when things are happening from passionate situations and learning how to navigate that and learning how to come back into your body to think, right? Like whenever my daughter's throwing a tantrum, I say, breathe so you can think. And I just think a lot of us don't have the tools to manage ourselves so that we don't make those kind of decisions. And so that we react in better ways, which is why, write down your 10 triggers and figure out what you're going to do, sis, when these things happen, so that you can then start to develop tools or find tools or reach out to somebody that maybe will give you the tools so that you can have a better outcome. But to give away your power in that way to someone where now your life may be forever changed, where you're living in jail now, or your rights are taken away, or your life sometimes is taken away based on a reaction you have in just one moment. Your whole life is different when there was just so many other options that could have maybe yielded a similar result without, all of that fallout at the end.
Yeah. Because it's the consequences. And mind you, consequences are not always bad. Like I know when people hear the word consequence, they immediately think bad. Consequences are not always bad. A consequence to your action could be because I decided not to dox him and post all his information online. The consequence is I am not being investigated by the FBI and the Atlanta PD. I mean, that's a damn good consequence for me.
Yeah, like maybe if she just took it for herself and swiped. I mean,
well, no, because then that's fraud. So,
but then maybe you just got to slap on the wrist, is what I'm saying. I'm just saying that there's levels. Okay. Maybe it would have been a misdemeanor. Maybe it would have been, the higher the amount is the higher. Yeah. Then it turns from the amount is what determines from misdemeanor to felony. So my good sis could have just maybe played a little smart and be like, okay, I'm gonna get this little slap on the wrist. They gave my record expunged. Like you gotta breathe so you can think. Okay, this is all I'm saying. If you must get revenge, let's be a little more strategic.
And also, okay, that's Elsa, her lower self speaking. And
Man,
Alicia
some
is
of these men deserve that shit. Okay. We don't know what that young lady went through.
y'all. For those of you who are listening to the beginning of this conversation, clearly Dani has some things that she's going to work through in her therapy sessions after this. And also, as women, it is really, really important that we learn to figure out what our triggers are so that we can identify and create alternatives to how we would normally respond. Figure out your triggers, identify what your traditional response is, right? Like when I got scorned by an ex, my response was to go and slash his tires. I now know through years of therapy and thousands of dollars that that is not okay. Why did you make me laugh? It's not okay.
Not okay.
That is not okay. And if you're wondering, oh, wait, no, I didn't help him find new tires, but that's okay. I did apologize and I did do things to rectify the situation. And thankfully, he was not very litigious or very inclined to call the popo. So he did not try and put me under the jail for destruction of property that was not mine. And also, everyone is not so lucky. Y'all, we're making it light, but it is not a light situation. You really will need to identify your triggers, figure out how you normally respond, and then create some alternatives that you will actually implement when things get crazy. Like whenever someone pisses me off to the point to where I too want to throw hands, because if you've heard any of my story, fighting is what I used to love to do. Now what I do is I literally will physically remove myself because I know I will snap, crackle, pop. And we don't need to be snap, crackle, popping at this level because I cannot continue to up level and soar and grow and do all the things if I'm still fighting. Like we're past that. And I need us all to figure out how we overcome what our traditional response would be to our triggers. We do so by being super clear about what they are, who we are, and how we normally respond, and then creating alternative methods for that.
And if all else fails, breathe so you can think.